Welcome, you're watching Primetime Debate. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. It's just under a month before the first votes are cast for the big election battle of 2019, and this is our tracker of sorts to see who stands where every week. Now, as far as alliances go, the BJP is streets ahead, undoubtedly. The party has now tied up with 10 partners across 6 states. The Congress has formed alliances in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka so far, and negotiations are on for other states. But are alliances going to be key in this election, or will this be a battle of personalities? At this stage, who is ahead in the perception game? To take stock of sorts of what is happening in election 2019, I'm joined now by senior journalist Nilanjan Mukhopadhyay and, of course, editorial director of the Business Standard, A.K. Bhattacharya. Welcome to both of you. Thank you, as always, for joining us on Primetime Debate. Mr. Mukhopadhyay, your take first. Over the last few days, there's been a lot of chatter and talk about how the opposition seems to be losing the plot. One's not very clear what the Congress is doing. Is it looking like a walkover so far?
The opposition hit a kind of a hurdle on February 14th with Pulwama happening, and after that Balakot on the 26th of February. So the entire narrative which was building up on the issue of livelihood concerns, rural distress, and basic problems of social security, that completely appears to have evaporated, and the opposition really does not know how to regroup its ranks. This is also the time when it has floundered very badly in terms of striking alliances. Now, in your introduction, you were saying that whether this is going to be elections of personalities or is it going to be one of alliances. Now, personalities are always important in Indian elections, but the counter to that is always alliances. It had appeared initially that there would be alliances. There were talk of alliances across parties in key states like Uttar Pradesh, but this has not happened. So Uttar Pradesh, a large number of other Congress-ruled states, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Delhi also, there is no alliance. So almost, a fair amount, about more than 200 odd seats, it appears that it is going to be a multi-cornered contest, which definitely is going to help the BJP. And these are the states where prior to the 14th of February, it appeared that the BJP was on a sticky wicket. And also the fact that it was from these states, the Hindi heartland and Western India, where the BJP got the majority of its seats in 2014. So the areas where it appeared to be slipping is the area where the opposition has now slipped. So it has lost a match which it was leading failure ahead. It is still not lost. There is still a lot of time. But how it regroups is something going to be very important to see.
Everyone says that so far the alliance game has gone to the BJP. You've said that as well, Mr. Mukhopadhyay. Mr. Bhattacharya, do you see enough of an effort coming from the opposition side, from the Congress's side, specifically, and the way Rahul Gandhi is trying to maneuver his way through this election? There seems to be a lack of cohesion, you think, in what the approach really is?
Well, I don't know whether there is a lack of cohesion, but clearly in the race for forging alliances, Congress has yet to make any headway, whereas, as you also pointed out, the BJP is almost miles ahead in that game. So, you take the case of Delhi. Now, I think Congress is sending conflicting signals on its alliance with Aam Aadmi Party. Aam Aadmi Party is already fielded its candidates, at least has announced the candidates. Now, there are 7 seats, are very important seats, not necessarily because of numbers, but because of a demonstration effect on the whole nation. When it comes to, and Delhi, 7 Lok Sabha seats are often seen as a barometer for the national elections. So my sense is Congress is still not got its act together. And the BJP has definitely got a couple of things right already. First, I think, as Mr. Mukhopadhyay rightly pointed out, it has got a very good narrative going its way. Till 1st of February, I would say, when the budget was presented, I think the Congress and the opposition parties had a very good narrative going on economic distress, joblessness, bit of lack of interest and lack of enthusiasm within the ruling party. But I think 1st February onwards, with that kind of a budget, and then comes Pulwama, and then comes 26th February of strike. Now the narrative game has been actually been taken over by the BJP. Now there are two other elements in any election in the run-up to the elections. Number one is about alliances, but more than the alliances, the way the Indian elections have been fought of late is how well you can split the opposition in each state. Now, I don't think the BJP has as yet made any headway in this direction. If you look back, the BJP has succeeded in many states largely because of its ability to split the opposition. But in the national forthcoming elections, I do see many states where the BJP is still to make any major progress in splitting the opposition. On the contrary, the regional parties probably has made some headway in splitting the opposition. So I think the forthcoming elections will of course be about narrative, wherein Mr. Modi has created a narrative which is right now looking a little more attractive to the ordinary voters. But in terms of the incumbent party, in the states particularly, who actually own the states in terms of the Lok Sabha seats being won from that state, the regional parties have actually had a head start in splitting the opposition so far. Whether the BJP manages to split the opposition in all the various states, I think it's only time will tell. Whether if it cannot do that, I would say it will be a difficult and it will be a well contested elections. Contrary to the early belief in some circles that it will probably BJP will have will win the elections easily. I think it will be a contested election, particularly the manner in which regional parties have been able to split the opposition votes.
I think that's an interesting point, and I urge this to be more of a conversation than one by one. So if anyone has a point to make, please come through. But yeah, it's an interesting point over there, especially Mr. Mukhopadhyay, considering that we tend to look at the political scenario in a binary of BJP and Congress, whereas a track record of elections in the last 5 years, assembly as well as by-polls, will show you that the real fight has come from non-BJP, non-Congress parties or regional parties to the BJP. Do you think that's a point people are sort of missing? And secondly, when you talk about national security in the wake of the Balakot strikes, do you expect that tempo really to last all the way for another month?
When you talk about a binary, basically the way I look at it is that it's not just an issue of binary, but if we actually try to understand that why is it that we look at it that way, there is actually a Delhi view of politics which is dominant all over the country. It's dominant in the media also. You are sitting in Bombay, but we sitting in Delhi tend to have a Delhi-centric view which comes to us because we are all the time interacting with politicians who are in Delhi. We are interacting with the social sector people, with various other people who are part of civil society, all Delhi based. So there is a very localized kind of people. It's talking to a very small clubhouse, call it Lattian's Delhi, call it whatever it is. So it's whatever is being discussed there and being filtered, this is what is filtering out. Now even other major urban centers, that is the way also, because you're also interacting with people from Delhi, so-called political pundits, all of us sitting here. So you kind of assume that what is being said, the way we look at it, the entire country we want the entire country to look at it. But it's not the way, it's not this way. Say for instance in a state like Bengal, where the Trinamool Congress is the dominant party, their kind of the alliances are going to be completely completely different. In Kerala, it's a completely different situation. In Tamil Nadu, the BJP, despite all the efforts it has made in the last several years, has not made any headway. Even its alliances do not seem at the moment to be with the winning side. It appears to be with the side which is not expected to do very well. So there is a different picture the moment we step out of Delhi, the moment we step out of the hearing zone of the people who are the constant chatter in Delhi. When we talk about alliances, there is also The fact is something very similar to what used to be when the Congress was the dominant party at the center, and you had various other non-Congress parties trying to come together. At that point, the basic conflict was that the social base of different parties which were trying to strike an alliance were actually clashing or overlapping. It is only the same thing is happening now in regard to the BJP, that you have the BJP on one side, but you have various other opposition parties on the other side. What is the basic conflict in a state like Uttar Pradesh? Why is it that Mayawati does not want to accommodate the Congress, or why is the Samajwadi Party also feeling that that it really doesn't help much if the Congress becomes part of the alliance? It's because at some level or the other they have rival competing social alliance, social bases. The Congress is also trying to make regain the base support it had among the Muslims, among the Dalits. These are the two constituencies. One is consolidated between the Samajwadi Party and the BSP, and the Dalits are fairly solidly behind the BSP. So accommodating Congress would also mean that you in any way are going to lose out on some of your core social base. So this is the basic conflict which is there. The other point which you're talking about, that whether this can be sustained or not. There are three basic concern areas for the BJP and Mr. Modi personally. The first is, of course, that to what extent will the wave of this nationalistic fervor, how strong it is going to be in non-Hindi states. We keep on saying that there is a completely different way we look at the entire dynamics of India-Pakistan relations in the Hindi states and in the non-Hindi states. There are various reasons for it. I don't want to get into it. So there is no certainty whether this is going to resonate as loudly as it is resonating in, say, Western Uttar Pradesh or in parts of Delhi, Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan, wherever these states. The second is that to what extent can the same issue be sustained? Let's keep in mind that 19th of May is the last phase of elections. As many as 111 seats in UP and Bihar, these are the states which are going to be most crucial to the BJP to come back, go to elections only in the month of May, or further seats are there if you add the phase on the 29th of April. So we are a fair distance away from the entire phase period where seats are going to be voted in these crucial states. So whether they are able to sustain it or not is a big question. The third is that the overexposure of Mr. Modi, in contrast to 2014, when there was a novelty factor of Mr. Modi, that seems to have really, is going to be tested, whether people are going to listen to him as seriously as they had in the past or not.
Well, if you compare that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the other question of personalities. Let me come to Mr. Bhattacharya on that. Overexposure of Mr. Modi, we see him everywhere. Do we see anyone else in his stead? And again, this may be a very urban question. I'm not sure if it is. But people often say that even if we have problems, if we don't vote for Narendra Modi as Prime Minister, what is the alternative? Do you think this Maha Milawat sort of narrative that the BJP is trying to push through for the opposition parties is working, is impacting people? Do they want to see a clear choice? Or are voters also looking at this seat by seat?
Well, I think, when it comes to national elections, voters look at what kind of government you want at the center. Clearly, a national leader, the face of the national leader becomes a very important factor when people vote. Political parties do come into play, but I think the central leader of the party also plays an important role. Now, if you go by that yardstick, it's very clear that Mr. Modi is, yes, he may be overexposed, but he is, having served as a prime minister for 5 years, he has a lot to say and a lot to account for also. So, which is why you are seeing more of him. And if he was, not that exposed in 2014, it was largely because he was a challenger then, and therefore he had to he had to sort of,
I don't know. I don't know. Sorry, sir, for coming in, but I don't know if you would say he was not exposed in 2014. I remember vividly that by this point, before the elections, mainline news channels were cutting in end to every speech, everywhere that at that time candidate Modi would give.
No, that is obviously because in compared to that, the Congress, Mr. Manmohan Singh and the Congress leaders were so embroiled in their own problems that they were not on the election scene. So even now, the Mr. Modi has clearly has had a head start in campaigning. And he is naturally talking about what he has achieved and what he would like to achieve. Now, compared to that, I think this time the Congress campaign is far more, I would say, reassuring for its core voters, because Congress is come out with coming out with especially the CWC meeting last week or early this week, actually giving an indication that what kind of policies and what kind of the thrust of the Congress governance would be. So I think the Congress campaign, certainly compared to 2014, is far better. And I think Mr. Modi's campaign, he's always in campaign mode. So I think he can talk a lot. He has a lot to talk. So he is going on, and he is the party's real vote catcher. So yeah. I think I will not be surprised that Mr. Modi goes out on a limb to even increase the pace of campaigning. He took a backseat in the last three or four assembly elections in November, December 2018. He did not campaign so much. I think he was conserving his energies. And I think you will see more of Modi this time, certainly because it's a very important election for him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mr. Mukhopadhyay, a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking with an analyst who talked about this large block of undecided voters and how key they are. And I want your perspective on this. The general understanding is that the BJP and Narendra Modi have a chunk of loyal voters who would vote for him and the party no matter what. The Congress also has its set of fixed voters who will always go with the party. We saw that even at its worst in 2014. But this wide swath of those who are somewhere on the fence, do you think there is a large enough number of people like that in this election, and which is why the next few weeks will be so crucial?
The basic challenge for Mr. Modi would be to do better than what he did in 2014. Now, if you actually remember, the BJP got 31% vote, which was 12% more than what it polled in 2009, which was the worst performance of the BJP since 1991, both in terms of the seats as well as in terms of the vote share. So if you say that the BJP's core vote, because it could not fall below that, was about 19%, a similar kind of vote share does the Congress have in 2014. So Mr. Modi's big challenge is going to be that can he go better than 2014? If not, it is going to be a much tighter and closer contest than what it was in 2014. Because if we actually look at the index of opposition unity, what has happened so far and what is likely to happen, by the time elections are there, I think it is going to be higher than 2014, more cohesive, and in more number of places. Wherever alliances are going to be there, there is going to be a greater agreement among the alliance partner that this is more necessary than ever before, because this is a kind of a make or break kind of a situation for them.
Yeah, a fight for survival.
I don't know, it looks that on paper Mr. Modi seems to be, pardon?
I'm saying yes, absolutely, a fight for survival for opposition parties.
Yes, it's a fight for survival. So on paper at the moment, post Pulwama, post Balakot, it looks like Mr. Bhattacharya also talked about the budget, which is a very important thing, which he pointed out. In fact, if you actually go back and look at the opposition campaign, it started floundering a bit after the SOPs which the Prime Minister was announced in the budget. But if on paper what appears may not actually finally translate into votes by the time the nation votes. Reporters are going out and finding a lot of euphoria, but euphoria is always very bubbly in nature. We do not know how long this fizz is going to last. Is it going to continue? Would something else happen? Would there be certain other unforeseen developments? Would there be more dramatic crossovers to the BJP? We've already seen some in the last few days. These are all very good for the optics. Tom Vadakan may not actually get anything for the BJP, even in Kerala, in terms of votes or a vote share. But it is definitely creates a buzz in the social media. It creates a good headline in the newspaper. It dominates television space for a couple of hours. So these are the various kind of gimmicks which has always helped the BJP, and I'm sure that there is going to be a separate department which is going to focus on this.
Okay, so
I think Mr. Mukhopadhyay has made a very interesting point. The 31% thing. I'm very keen to know, how will this 68 million first-time voters vote this time? And I think the answer to that question, whether Mr. Modi or the BJP can raise its vote share from 31% to above, will actually be answered by how the 68 million first-time voters for the Lok Sabha elections in 2019, they exercised their choice. So I think the 68 million people who are between the age group of 18 and 23, how they vote this time will probably hold the key to whether the BJP can increase it from 31% or 31% will be good enough. But my sense is, as I said earlier, that this election will be largely determined by the efficacy and the ability of a political party, which is the leading party in a region, whether it is Trinamool in West Bengal, whether it is TRS in Telangana, or whether it is Telugu Desam in Andhra Pradesh, or is AIDMK or DMK in Tamil Nadu. I think the key question would be, can the leading party in a state split the opposition votes in a manner that they retain their dominance in the state? I think that will be the key tussle in this 2019 elections, whether BJP can again achieve what it did in 2017 in UP, or even 2014 and 2015 in many other states, is something that will determine probably largely, apart from the various narratives that parties will talk about. I think that, to my mind, is going to be a key question in these elections. And of course, the new first-time voters, 68 million of them, is a hell of a lot. So how they actually behave, whether jobs will be an issue for them or not. Now, these are questions that, we don't have an answer to.
Absolutely. The disclaimer that Mr. Mukhopadhyay started with, there is no way really for anyone to know what everyone thinks about.
I just want to make another quick point. Tamanna, I want to just make a very quick point. Mr. Bhattacharya has very rightly pointed out about the 68 million first-time voters. There's also a very important key that what is going to be the electoral preference of the second-time voters. Those who were first-time voters in 2014, are they going to be as solidly behind Mr. Modi as they were in 2014, as post-poll surveys later on showed, that the majority of them were backing Mr. Modi. So do they continue to back him, or have they got dilution because of jobs not happening, because of rural distress, because of growing social insecurity? This is something also which is going to be very important, the voting behavior of the second-time voter.
Okay, so in the end, as we wrap up the show, the key question that we started with, who's ahead in the perception game at this point? Do both of the panelists agree that right now, because of the alliances perhaps and the kind of campaign out there, that the BJP is ahead?
As of now, BJP is ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Mukhopadhyay, you agree?
No. I agree. I concur with what Mr. Bhattacharya said, that the BJP and Mr. Modi are fairly ahead of the opposition.
Yeah, so as of now, the BJP and Narendra Modi are ahead. But, you know, a week is a long time in politics, and there's at least 3 to go before the first votes are cast. Of course, it's a long 7-phase elections. We'll keep tracking how both sides are doing right here on Bloomberg Quint. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us today.